All right, welcome to the channel. If you've been following the channel recently, I've been doing a lot of Ready Player Me tutorials. I'm gonna take a break from that, and I want to go back to my multiplayer roots. When I first decided to learn multiplayer, I was still using Playmaker 100%. It's the only way I was making games. And in the Playmaker community, we did have a multiplayer tool from Photon, Pun 2. There were Playmaker actions for it. There wasn't a lot of tutorials and there wasn't a lot of understanding in the Playmaker community and how to actually get a multiplayer game to work. So I spent about a month really studying Photon's Pun 2 and the Playmaker actions and built a tic-tac-toe game. So I thought it would be fun to go back in time and build another tic-tac-toe game, except this time using Fusion and C#. So let's hop to it. So the first thing we need is a tic-tac-toe board. And I want to make it fancy, so I'm going to use 3D objects. And how am I wanting to do that? Let's make this as simple as possible, and let's just create a cube. All right, and so this is just going to be our cube. And it's looking that way. All right. And so what I need is, let's go ahead and prepare this cube. Let's go 3D object. I'm going to take a risk here. And one thing I was thinking of doing was on this back side of the cube, so I thought about putting just a 3D Text Mesh Pro object, but just for fun, and this might not work, let's use a canvas. Let's test and see if it works first. So if I go UI canvas and I make this a world space canvas, and I'll just go ahead and drop the main camera here so I don't forget about it. It's on the cube. Let's zero it out. And if we hit the little rec tool, we can see that this thing is massive. Now with canvases in UI, you could adjust the width and height, but I've found that scaling the canvas might be a better idea because a lot of your sprites for buttons and stuff might not look right at really small dimensions. So you can use scale instead. So what if we just go to 0.1? No. How about 0.01? And now we're here. All right. So, we're not exactly, let's switch to isometric. All right, so let's get our height down to about 130, 100. Yeah, 100, that would make sense. Yeah, 100 by 100, it should be meter by meter, 0.01. Yeah, that makes sense. Good math. Okay, so we have a canvas, and I think the canvas is just in the center of the cube. Right, and I've noticed one thing with world canvases before is you can have the rest of the elements in 3D space, and as long as they're associated with the canvas, I think they still work. So let's do a quick test on that. Let's do UI, and let's do a button, Text Mesh Pro, and let's just stretch this. I'm holding Alt-Shift. That should stretch it to the canvas. And now that it's stretched, I'm going to Alt-Shift again and just center it. And I'm going to go to the button, go to the text. I'm going to go ahead and auto-size it, set the minimum to 0.01, which I wish it was by default. And I'm just going to leave the word button there because I just want to see that it's clickable. And also on highlight, I want it to be yellow so that we can see that that's working. And on press, let's just make it green. All right. So where's our cube facing again? Our cube is facing that way. So that's where it's looking. But I want the back of it is going to be to the camera to start out with. And then here's our button. So if I take the button and I move it to here, right? Something like that. I should be able to click on this, I hope. So just to make sure I can see the button, let's take our main camera, let's go to game object, and let's go to align with view. And then here's our game scene. So now if I hit play, all right, and there we go. It says I'm on the button, click green. So yeah, we can totally interact with the button even though it's not on the same plane as the canvas. What if it's on the back side of the canvas though? So if I take my button and doesn't really have a pivot point, but if I take its position and make it positive, we should now be on the other side. And then if we rotate 180 degrees, did I even speak words there? All right, and so now I need to take my main camera, go to game object, align with view, hit play again. All right, button still seems to be working. Swell. So that's going to do wonders for us because we're going to start out, spoiler alert, we're going to start out doing this to where you can just use it on normal flat screen play. But then once we have it all set up, I'm going to show you how easy it is to convert it to a VR experience using Unity XR. All right, so I'm going to take my button, put it back where it was. Actually, I do want the button here. Do I want the button there? I think I want the button there. But I don't really want to see it, and I'll show you why. So do that. On my button, there's going to be no text, and I'm just going to go ahead and take my main camera. What happens if I put my main camera at 0, 0, 0? All right, and then where's my button in relation to my main camera? Holy cow! Yeah. Okay. Let's look at our cube and let's reset the cube. So now the cube and the camera should be in the same spot. So if I take my cube and go this way, there it is. Swell. All right. So the button isn't really going to serve much of a purpose except to just be able to click on the cube without having to set up any type of like raycasting or mouse click functionality. I'll just use a button. So I'm going to change my transition to none on this, and then I'm also going to remove my sprite, and so the button is now invisible, but it'll still act as a button whenever I'm ready for it to be a button. All right, so we have one cube here, so we're going to make this be our middle box. Right? So if I then duplicate this, and I now position it up 1 in theory, but let's put a spacing of what, 0.2 maybe? Oh, I need to go back to my scene view because that's my game view. All right, maybe that's too much. I don't know. Really, going to depend. Maybe I don't need to do 0.2. Maybe I can do 1.1. Yeah. All right. So now we have our. This is going to be our. Do middle box, and this is going to be our middle top box. And then if I take this and duplicate it, and I do -1 point, then we have our middle bottom box. All right, and so we now have our 3 boxes, and I'm gonna move the event system up here out of my way. And so we can now duplicate these. So if we now take these 3 and we duplicate them, and on the X we go -1.1. Boy, I'm totally not looking at the right perspective. All right, so we should need to rename all these to left top box, and then left middle box, and then left bottom box. If we go back to the middles, and I guess we want these above there. All right, if we go back to the middles, and we duplicate, I'm going to regret duplicating all these, probably because, no, it's not going to be a big deal. All right, and then these we're going to set on the X, 1.1, and here we have our tic-tac-toe board, essentially. So we have our right top box, we have our right middle box, and then we have our right bottom box. So if we come back over here into our game view, and we look at our main camera, we probably want to move our camera back just a little bit, and probably even more, to give us some room for some UI around the experience here. And so, yeah, that's pretty cool. Okay, so I'm already regretting something, but let's go back to our middle box just for fun. And I am going to make this a prefab. I'm going to create I already have a prefabs folder. but that's for a different project, a different demo, the Ready Player Me demo. Let's just go create folder. We're gonna call this TicTacToe. And then inside here, we'll create a prefabs folder. Folder, prefabs. All right, and so I'm just gonna take my box, drop it into the prefabs folder, and then let's open up that prefab. So we have our button on the front. That's just for making the cube clickable. But I want to, I guess I can't duplicate the button. I want to put a text on the back. So UI Text Mesh Pro, and I'm going to stretch it to the size of the canvas. And now I'm going to Alt Shift, which I was already holding Alt Shift, put it back in the center. And then I am going to auto size it, set it to 0.01, so no matter what it fits. I'm just going to put a big X here, and we're going to make it black, and center horizontally, center vertically. And then what's our buttons Z? We're just going to copy our button Z, and we're going to put it there, but make it on the other side. And then we also need to, letters are symmetrical. Well, I guess not all letters are symmetrical, but X's and O's are symmetrical. But I'm going to flip them around anyways to make sure that they're facing the right way. Right, there we go. All right, and I think we can make that a little bit bigger. So now that I know that 44.75 fits, let's just go 50. Let's just keep making it bigger. Yeah, like that's good. All right, so we have that. So now if I come over here, I can hold down Alt, grab my prefab, and I can drop it on the left box. It should have worked. Why didn't it work? It worked, but it didn't keep its position. Undo. I can't even undo it now. I swear that's worked in the past. Is it Alt, Shift, and drop it in? Nope. Well, dag nabbit. All right, I'm going to reset all these up. All right, there we are. I may have changed the naming a bit because it wasn't making sense before. So my thought was to have the cubes rotate all the way around, and then the letter on the back would change based on which player it was. But let's give it a little bit more realism. So let's go into the prefab. And then let's put, I don't know, X on the left and O on the right. So this is going to be X. And what we need to do here is set its position back to 0 here. Over here, do minus 50.4. And then maybe rotate 90. Ooh, look, our game window's updating. All right, let's see what it looks like. So our X, it says it's facing that way. Local, please. Okay, so we're facing the wrong way. So we need to go minus 90. Yeah, that's how I want to do it on the X. And then so we can duplicate that, call this O, and put an O there. Oh, let's put an O there. And then this should be 90 degrees, and this should be positive 50.4, right? And we got an O over there. Cool. All right, so we go back, and you can see we have X's on the left of all of our cubes, and we got O's on the right of all of our cubes. Superb. So now what we need is we need to put a script on our prefab that is going to rotate when the button is clicked. So let's create a scripts folder. Y'all saw that, right? It happens to me all the time where I swear I click folder, nothing happens. All right. Scripts. All right, let's go into the scripts folder, and we're going to create a C# script, and we're going to call this, I don't know, TicTacToe Box. No one owns the rights to TicTacToe, right? I can call things TicTacToe. All right, hit enter. I'm going to pause while it's compiling. All right, now let's open up the script so we can edit it. All right, first thing that's always a good idea is, just for fun, when you're creating scripts, you know, put your own little name on there. Created by Philip Hurlitz, and then let's put the year. Okay. And I don't think I'm going to be using system collections. And then let's put a namespace. And you don't have to do a namespace, but it's a good way to keep your code organized and avoid some conflicts. So I'm going to put my company name dot my project name, which is going to be TicTacToe. And I can take it even further, but it's such a small project. I'm just going to keep it like that. And then I'm going to cut my class, paste it in here. And I'm going to delete all that because I don't know what I'm going to do with it yet. And here, I do know that I want to... Now, we could use an animator to rotate these cubes, or we could not use an animator to rotate these cubes. And I don't really know which I want to do. I'm leaning towards not using an animator, just less components to have to worry about. But one thing we do need, though, is we need to access the button so that we know when we've clicked it. So let's do a private button. What the heck? Let's try this again. Private button, escape button. All right, we can just hover over this, Alt Enter, and we are using UnityEngine.ui. Okay, and then private void awake button is going to equal get component in children because the script I'm putting on the box and the button's not on the box. And so I'm just going to put button here. And it should now have the button. Okay, and so once we have the button, we can subscribe to the button getting clicked. So we can do button.onClick.addListener plus equal click. Should be capitalized. I think we just do that. I always forget if I need to write it like a method or not. Let's find out. Well, let's see if I just hover over it. My mouse is kind of on an incline here, so it's always sliding down. All right, Alt Enter. Yeah, it's just looking for the method click. Okay, so we're gonna do private void click. Cool, that's happy. Why isn't this happy? Cannot assign add listener because it is a method group. Oh, does it need to be like this? Yeah, okay. Cool. So what do you want to do when we click? I mean, I guess we could just debug log clicked, right? Just to make sure logic's working, we can do that real quick. So if we now go back to the scene, just click any of the game objects and open the prefab. And then here on the prefab, let's just collapse all this. And let's add the component. Well, it's right here. I'm just going to drag it over. Boom. Okay. And let's hit play and let's see what happens. All right, we're playing. So if I look at my console, let's go ahead and clear it out. And if I click on that, boom, clicked, 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 clicked. Great, everything works wonderfully. All right, so we now know that we can click these, and now we just got to tell it what to do when it's being clicked. We here? We're here. So I'm going to cut out some of the video I recorded. You haven't seen it. I was thinking of animating these cubes using script, but I'm just going to use an animator because I'm more comfortable with that. So I'm going to go into my prefab, and let's go ahead and add an animator. Okay. And then here's TicTacToe. Let's go ahead and create a folder for animations. And inside here, we will create a new animator controller. There it is. And we're going to call this TicTacToe Box Controller. Big old name. All right, so if we come back to our box and we do that. So now we can just go and create an animation. So let's go over here. We're on our box. And if we create a new animation, we're in our animations. I'm going to call this rotate to X. And we're just going to hit record. and rotation, add key. And then let's go to about half a second. And then we're going to set this to -90. And we're done. So just play. There we go. It's rotating to X. Very nice. All right. So we can now create a rotate to O. All right. And so let's record. And let's add a key on our rotation by right-clicking. And let's go to 30 and rotate to -90. No. Rotate to +90. Wonderful. All right. And we can preview that. And we can see rotate to O. Very nice. All righty. So let's go to our animator. And we have our rotate to O, rotate to X. And I'm just going to create an empty state. And I'm just going to call this empty. And I'm going to right click on this and set it as the default state. And then we're going to just create a trigger for X. And then let's create a trigger for Y. And then let's go from any state, make a transition to, not Y, dagnabbit. I'm going to be doing that all the dang time. O. All right, and then we're going to make our rotate to O, the transition, no exit time, and our condition is O. Then make a transition, go to X, and make a transition that's going to be X. Good, so X to X, and O to O. And now we go back to our box, and we need to make sure, yep, those animations are there, yep. And come here, and we have our TicTacToe Box Animator controller. Cool. So we have our animator all set up. You can see that they are now on all these guys as well. So let's add a variable to our script for the TicTacToe box. So we're going to do a private animator, and we're just going to call it animator. And then on awake, our animator is going to equal get component animator. All right. So on click, we need to, we're going to have a, for now, let's make a public bool. For is X. So if is X, then animator dot set trigger is X. Come back up here. Else animator dot set trigger O. Set O and typed X. Cool. So for testing purposes, here we are back in Unity, and you can see that we have our isX bool available here. All right, so we can see our animator is not doing anything right now. If I click on this bottom box, since it's not X, it should rotate to O. Oh, snap. Why are you looping? All right, but just while we're waiting on that, let's do the top left box, and let's say that it is X. If we click on that, there we go. Rotates to X. Beautiful. All right, but let's fix our looping problem because they're set to loop automatically. We just got to uncheck those and we're golden. So I think that's all that we're going to do without actually connecting in Fusion. So let's do that now. All right, it's another day and we're moving on to doing Fusion. Let's see if I can get this done with all my kids awake, bouncing around me. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create an empty object to act as my Fusion Manager. Name it whatever you want. And I'm just going to put it 000, not that it really matters. And then we need to create a new script. So I'm going to go to my TicTacToe folder, go to my scripts folder, and I'm going to create a C# script called Fusion Manager. Let that compile. All right, it's compiled, so let's open it up now, and let's actually do some edits to it. So when you install Fusion, there's several example scripts you can use on making the Fusion connection, but it can be a bit overwhelming looking at it that way. So we're just going to build one from scratch here. First thing I'm going to do, like I always like to do now, is create a namespace with my development name and then the game name. Did I not do one of these yet? I guess this is my first script, so I guess not. TicTacToe, and then dot, I don't know, Fusion. Shift enter, and then I'm gonna cut the class, paste it on in there. And I'm probably not gonna need the collection, so I'm gonna go ahead and delete that. And I don't know if I've shown this to you recently, but you can always do this, especially if you're working on a team. Put yourself a little note at the top that you made this. All right, so this is going to be a network behavior. I guess it doesn't have to be. We'll leave it a mono behavior. I don't think this one has to be a network behavior. But we're going to use Fusion. So using Fusion. And then I'm going to put a comma after the mono behavior. I'm going to put I network runner callbacks, I think is what we want. And I'm just going to delete these. And then I'm going to hold Alt over this or hold my mouse over this, and you can see this callback requires that you implement all these callbacks. So to do it real quick, we're just gonna hit Alt Enter and then tell it to implement the interface, and boom, everything is here now. So one thing that is a bit annoying is we don't want it to throw exceptions at runtime. So I'm gonna go through and delete all these throw exceptions. I'm just gonna highlight it and delete it. So I'm gonna pause while I do that. All right, so we have these all done. Most of these callbacks I'm not going to use. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the callbacks that I think I'm going to use for this little demo. And I'm going to take onPlayer join and onPlayer left. And I'm going to cut that. And I'm going to move it near the top. And I'm going to do it right underneath onConnected to server because I'm going to be using that one too. And then what we can do to clean this up a bit is we're going to create a new region by putting a little # hashtag. And we're going to do region unused Fusion callbacks, and then we just go all the way to the bottom here, and we just go end region like so. So now what we can do is I can come up here and I can collapse that, and then we have unused Fusion callbacks, and here we still have our Fusion callbacks that we are using. So these callbacks don't do us any good unless we actually attempt to connect to Fusion. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a private void start. And this is when we're going to actually connect to Fusion. And one thing we need a network runner. A lot of the Fusion examples actually have the network runner get created at runtime. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to actually put it on the component right away. So we're going to do public network runner, and we're just going to call it runner. And so now if I go back to Unity and I click on my Fusion Manager, we got to add our Fusion Manager script. Now there it is. There's our public variable for the runner. And let's just go to add component and network runner. And then we're just going to grab the network runner and drop it on there. Cool, we have our network runner. So let's go back to our Fusion Manager script. Just going to double click on it there it was already open, but fast way to do it. All right, so we have our network runner. So now what we're going to do on start is we actually want to connect to Fusion through our network runner. And if we look at the examples from Fusion, and this is Fusion 102 on their documentation, we're basically going to be copying all of this. So I'm just going to copy that, and I'm going to come over here. And I guess I'm going to replace start because it's got to be async. So we do that. All right, and just so I don't have to rename these runners, I'm just going to... No, I don't want to rename that. I am just going to go like this. All right, I forget the shortcut and how to replace all references, but I think if I highlight and then right-click and I go to rename, I cannot rename this element. Well, fun. All right, well, let me just rename all these. All right, so there really wasn't that many. All right, so this is where it's going to want to create the runner. We've already done that. And this is for if the runner is going to be providing input for the player. That's if you're going to be running on host mode. And most of my tutorials are going to be shared mode, because shared mode is a lot easier to understand. It's a lot simpler. If you're going to be doing really quick-paced games like first-person shooters and stuff, you're probably going to want to go with hosted mode. It makes your syncing a lot more reliable, but shared mode is just fine. So I'm gonna go with shared mode. I don't need to add my runner because I've already done it. I don't need to provide input because all the players are providing their own input. They're not sending it through the runner. And so my game mode, what this would do is I could have a public variable for the game mode, which that's what it's trying to do here. But I'm just going to delete that. And then my mode, I'm just going to set to game mode shared, like that. And also just type mode, and then IntelliSense, because I'm using Fusion, it knows what I potentially want here. So game mode shared is what I'm doing. Session name, I'm just going to call this room 1. You could obviously have a variable to represent your room that you can change whenever. You could also create a random room. I guess we should probably do that because this is only going to be a 2-player session, so we should probably take care of that. So let's do a private string room name. And then here in start room, let's get a room name is going to equal room plus and random. Let me just look this up. All right, so hooray, Unity documentation. And I believe we can just do random.range. Why is that not working? You know what? It might need a system.random.range. No, let me check again. It might not like that I'm putting it as a string. That's probably what's happening here. But let's see if I do random.range and actually do 1000 to 9999. Why are you upset? Why are you upset? Random is an ambiguous reference between Unity Engine.random and System.random. Okay, so if I do Unity Engine.random, there, now it's happy. But yeah, I think that'll still work. I think that'll automatically tie it to the string. So cool. I'm gonna go ahead and comment this out because this is something we will use later on. We would need to have some type of room list. If we just leave our session name blank, what it'll do is it'll attempt to connect to a random room, or it'll create a random room. All right, and then it needs a scene, although we're not really going to use it, but it needs a game argument for scene. This is already written there for us from the example I copied from the documentation. I just need to make sure that we're using Unity Engine.scene management. I could also put in a manual build index here. I don't have to get it from Scene Manager. I could just put a build index here if I wanted to. And then it also requires a scene manager if one doesn't exist. And so it's going to go ahead and add that automatically for us. And this scene manager is a network scene manager component. And this is just going to use a default one that Fusion created, and that's fine. Yeah, so when we start game, we should be connecting to the server now. And just to test that, we can debug.log. We have connected. You got to type things good. Connected to the server. I'll put a period there. Nope, that's a comma, period. All right, let's save and let's go test it. Let's see if I forgot anything. I'm going to clear the console. Let's hit play. So it's not working. And I'm not sure what I forgot here. Give me just a moment. Oh, because I'm ridiculous. This is not a start function. It is a start game function. Let's go back to our start, and then let's call start game. And now let's go back and hit play. I was like, it's not even trying to start this. All right, clear the console, hit play. Let's see what happens. All right, we are running. And something's happened. Yes, we've connected to the server. We can see in our network runner that we have connected. It's got all of our connection info here. You know, I've never noticed the shutdown button before, and I'm working on multiple Fusion projects right now. That's kind of neat that I can just shut it down right there in the inspector. So that's cool. So one thing we want to keep in mind is we don't want the player to be able to interact with these boxes yet until the game actually starts. So where are these buttons at? That's right. So let's just search button. Let's find all these buttons. And let's make them to where they're not interactable right now. This reminded me one more thing that we should be doing here. On click, where's the scripts for these buttons? Where did we put them? Oh, on the prefab probably. So if we go to the prefab, we have our TicTacToe box. If we come in here, so even though it's unlikely they'd click this button on the boxes a second time because it's rotating out of view, just on click, let's make sure that it's no longer interactable. So we're gonna do button dot interactable equals false after it gets clicked for the first time. The next thing we take a look at is how do we limit the number of users that can join our Tic-Tac session. Typically in Tic-Tac-Toe, only 2 players can be in a room. And what's funny is I've been using Fusion on multiple projects for a while, but we're not worried about limiting the room size count in any of those, so I haven't even had to look at it. So I just took a minute or two to figure out how can we limit the room size count. And they're not called rooms anymore. They're now called session names. So as you can see, our start game arguments, there's a lot of different arguments we can use. We go back to our script Fusion Manager here. Where's our start game arguments? Right here. So here's our start game arguments. You can see there's a lot of other things that we can implement. Let's just take the easy thing right now and let's look at player count. We want our player count to be 2. So let's go to our script. What? All right, let's close that. Different project. All right. So I don't know if it matters the order it's in, but I'm just gonna go like this and go player count equals 2. Whoa, undo. What did I do? Player count equals 2, comma. All right. So now we've limited our player count to just 2 players. But let's take a look at what session properties can be. What all can be in session properties. We're not going to utilize session properties in this Tic-Tac-Toe project, but what you can use it for is for setting things like game mode or map, and then you can display those in your lobby. All right, so we're good here now, right? I had to step away and I forget where we left off, but we're good here. We don't need any more of these properties right now. We might come back. So let's look at our start game. So we're going to limit our count to 2. So on player joined, for now, let's just debug it out. It says a player has joined with player ref and then plus player. All right. And let's see what happens if we just join by ourselves. I don't think we're going to get the callback on player joined when we join. I think we only get it when others join. But just to confirm, we're going to check right now. Okay, we did get the callback. So we can see it right here. We've connected to the server. And then a player has joined with player reference player 0. All right, so that's us. Let's go ahead and stop playback now. And let's return to the scene because we need to have a little bit more going on here. And just for fun, let's go to the main camera and let's not use the skybox. Let's just go solid color. I don't know, let's just give it a nice... Ooh, boy, that's too bright. Let's see what purple's like. Ah, okay, we'll go purple. All right, looks kind of cool. All right, so we need to have some sort of textual feedback, right? So let's create a new canvas. And this is going to be, I'm just gonna leave it at canvas. And I don't want it to block anything because I don't want it to block our clicks. So here we have a canvas and then we need text. So let's just make this our title. Let's just put Tic-Tac-Toe. All right, and then let's position this at the top. Oh, also let's go to our canvas and let's always scale it with screen size, 1920 by 1080. Let's keep it at width. So there's our title. What if we switch this to auto size? Doesn't get much bigger. Make our height a little bit more. I'm gonna sneeze. All right, let's make our height. Yeah, let's make our height kind of like that. And let's make our width 300. Let's center this. Let's not have a max really. Let's just crank it. And our width needs to be even more. Let's just 600 it out. All right, cool. So there's our title. What's that look like over here? Let's switch to 2D mode. Let's look at our canvas. Oh, our canvas, of course, is matching our screen size. All right. All right, so it's a little bit tough to judge, but I think that's that. Let's see what our Yeah, that looks good. I mean, really, we could stretch that across the top, but that's fine. All right, so we have our title there, and then let's put one at the bottom. I'm just going to duplicate this, and let's just Alt-Shift do that, and we're going to put I don't know, game status, and we'll start this out as waiting for players. I do want to go ahead and Alt-Shift stretch this completely across, but I want to turn off auto size. And let's just do it like that. All right, so we're going to be waiting for players. And now what? All right, sorry for the change in audio. My Snowball mic, I lost the cord that plugs into my computer. So I have to use this super cheap headset. Hopefully you can still hear me. So let's see how this goes. So I actually cut out some more from the footage because I didn't like the logic that I used. So I think this is about where you were. I'm sorry if it doesn't exactly match up. We have it to where when you click on a TicTacToe box, it's going to debug that it's been clicked. But then we need to know if we are to flip X or if we are to flick O. And one thing we want to do, and I can't remember if I did this yet, so that's why I deleted it, but after we click on a box, we want to make it not interactable anymore. So we want to go to button.isInteractable and make it false, so it's no longer interactable. But we need to know if we're player X or if we're player O. The easiest way to do that is find out if we're player 0 or player 1. So we need to reference our network runner that's on our Fusion Manager. And I apologize if there's a bunch of extra in here. I don't think there is. Yeah, interesting that I didn't utilize this method before. So what I want to do here is I want to create a public Fusion Manager instance, and then on start we're going to set instance, I guess we can check first, make sure it's null. If instance is null, then instance equals this. And the reason we do this is we can now go back to our TicTacToe box, and we should now be able to go Fusion Manager dot instance. No. Fusion Manager dot instance. Why can't we do that? Probably because it hasn't fully compiled, because we have errors. Button dot interactable false, and then delete this, save. Okay, so I also need to make this static. Alright, so don't worry about this GameManager script. I think I'm still going to be using that part of the recording, so you'll see that in a bit, how I create that. So I need to make this instance static. I'm not going to make my network runner static anymore. Let me make sure I remove that old junk. And I don't see it in there. Okay, good. And so now I should be able to do Fusion Manager dot instance, and I can. So now I want to get the runner from the instance, and I want to get the local player, and I want to get the player ID. So if the player ID is 0, then we know that we are player X. Otherwise, we are player O. So assuming I haven't broken anything between the 2 weeks I recorded these, if I come back over here, and if we hit, let's just make sure Fusion Manager doesn't look weird. Ignore the fact there's a GameManager prefab. I'll put that part of the recording after this. Alright, so we're connected, but I still think none of these boxes are interactable. So let's go ahead and take this top left box and find the button. Make it interactable. And boom, it rotated to X. So, we think that logic is working now. All right, now it's time to start thinking about a game manager. So let's create an empty object, and I'm going to make it game manager. And I'm going to put that here. Collapse all that. And I'm just move my canvas up here. All right, so my game manager, let's zero it out. And let's create a new script. And it's going to make this our game manager script. Wait to compile. Interesting. it got a different sprite. Don't know if that matters. I guess I've never called something a GameManager before. But interesting, it's got this little gear icon on it. But let's just double click on it and edit it. All right, so in our GameManager here, let's create a namespace. Googly Eyes Games .TicTacToe. And I don't think it needs anything more unique than that. And I don't think I'm gonna need any lists. I'm gonna get rid of those. And I'll add these back if I want them. All right, so in the GameManager, we need to have we need a start game. So I just realized I do want lists. Maybe I'll use an array though. So let's do that. Let's do a. I'm lazy. I'm just gonna make it public. Public button, and it's gonna be escape an array, and we're gonna call this button array. Why not? All right, we need to use UI. So there we go. I just hit Alt Enter to do that. And we need a start game method. So we'll just do, it needs to be public void start game. And then we're going to do a for each button, we'll say B in button array. I want to take B dot interactable equals true. Because at the start, they're not interactable. But then once we're ready to start the game, we want to make all those buttons interactable. Actually, we don't want to set all of the buttons to true to be interactable because we don't want player 2, the one controlling those, to be able to click on them yet. So when start game happens, we basically need to call some type of turn function. But at the start of the game is the only time that we're going to set them all to interactable. That's not true either. Let me think for a second. Okay, starting over. So the GameManager, we're back to this. Some things have changed. Any namespaces up at the top, if they're showing as gray for you, delete those. That's what I just did. This is all I'm using right now. Get rid of your button array, make it a list instead, because we're going to be removing buttons from that list, and it's easier to do in a list than it is an array, and I've named it available buttons. So when the game starts, what we want to do is we want to say whose turn it is. So player's turn is going to equal 0, because the first player in the room is going to be X, is represented with a player reference of 0. And we can just use an int for that. I tested that previously. And then for each button, we'll say B, that's in our available buttons list, we're going to make sure it's interactable. Okay? So if we just play like this, so here we are playing. Oh, we didn't call start game. Well, since that didn't work, and I'm looking at my Fusion Manager right now, I'm going to backpedal in the Fusion Manager. So I, for the longest time, was adding the network runner component onto my Fusion Manager, and then just dragging and dropping it like this. Don't do that. And here's why. Because when you're done with your game loop, essentially, and they want to go back to a lobby or something, the only way to leave a room is to go to runner shut down, and you can't reuse a runner. So that's why in all of the examples they are creating a runner. So let's go back into the Fusion Manager real quick. And I don't want my... Okay, that's good. So on awake, if runner is null, then runner equals add component null Yes, it is what I want. But we need to type GameObject dot add component, and then the component we want is network runner. All right, that's what we should be doing. That's the proper way to do this bit. So it'll be created at runtime. So if we hit play now, you can see there is no network runner, but if we hit play, and here you can see we now have a network runner that's been added, and here it is. Let's go back into our game manager now. And so one thing we need to do is we need to remove buttons we click on from the available buttons list, because we don't want, when player X clicks on a cube and it rotates around, we don't want player O to be able to click the same cube. Now, it's probably not going to matter because the cube is going to rotate and they shouldn't be able to click on the button, but just to be safe, let's do it. So we need is a remote procedure call. So an RPC, we got to tag it like that. And let's make it a public void, and we just name it RPC underscore, and we're going to remove button from list. And we need to probably say, let's just do button B, and then we're going to want the RPC to send a button, so we know which button we're removing. So it should just be as simple as then going available buttons dot remove B, and it'll then remove it from the list. So we now need to go to the TicTacToe box, and on click, we're setting his interactability to false, and that's fine. But then we also need to call a method on the game manager. Now, I don't think we cannot call an RPC from a mono behavior. Feel free to correct me in wrong comments if you found that you can. I don't even know that I've ever actually tried. I'm pretty sure you can't, because that would not really make sense. I mean, I would be able to call the method, but it wouldn't send it over the network, I don't think. So what we need is a public method that we can access here. And I'm just going to call it remove button. And this needs to know what button it's removing as well, so button B. And then we're just going to call RPC underscore move button from list, and we're going to put RB for our button in there. So then I can come to the TicTacToe box, and I think our game manager, we don't have our game manager instanced, so let's do that. So let's do public void on awake, and let's do a public game manager instance. And on awake, if instance is null, then instance is this. Then I can just come over here to the TicTacToe box, and I can do game manager, which is, why is my namespace that? That should not be the namespace. How did that happen? Okay, so now now we can see game manager because they were in different namespaces. Now we do game manager.instance. Oh, we didn't make it static. My fault. Public static game manager instance. And so now we can type instance and then dot remove button, and the button we want to remove is not this. Oh, but we know the button's right here, so we can just say button. Great. So now we've removed the buttons from the list. So now all we need to do now is change whose turn it is. I'm tightening my little mouse tray here. So what's the best way to do that? So we could do it right here from removing the button in the list. Maybe we should have a separate method for that. So what if we do blah, 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 blah. Public void change player. And how do I want to do this? So while I was thinking, I noticed I have a ton of errors in the console, and it can sometimes be confusing because you do one thing wrong and you'll just get a whole slew of stuff pop in because it's the way that Fusion weaves everything together. But usually, if you look at the third one, I think, like the first one is like, hey, we're having an issue. Just click in there until you actually see something that references an actual script you have. And I lost where it is. Maybe it's this one. Oh, I can't find it. But anyways, the issue is an RPC cannot use a button as a parameter. So what we need is for our RPC, we're going to make our parameter be an int. And then here, we can find the int. Int I equals available buttons dot get available buttons dot, because that's the list, and I want to get index. Why can't I see that? Index, oh, there we go. Index of B. So that'll tell us the index of B, and then we can pass that index as an int to here. And so from available buttons, we are going to remove, I think we need to remove at, possibly. Remove at I. Alright, and so that should solve the issue I was having with my console because we can't send a button component. Yeah, alright. So how are we going to change players? So I feel like this is going to be pretty easy. If player's turn is 0, set player's turn to 1. Else, player's turn needs to be 0. Okay, and so after we change that, the words where I keep pausing to think is this GameManager isn't being used anywhere yet. As you can see, because I made this several weeks ago, we're going to be instantiating the GameManager on a prefab. And we probably don't need to do that. I could probably just add the component rather than spawn in the GameManager. But we're going to spawn in this GameManager instead. And the issue is going to be how much of this is player 2 going to be able to be doing, because player 1 has state ownership over this. But let's ignore that for now. And just after we remove the button from the list, let's just change player. And you know what? We're not going to do that at some point, but for now we're going to change player. Because once really what we need to do is every time we click a button, we need to check for the win state. Because if the player wins, we're not going to change the player. So we would check for a win state. And in fact, sorry that keeps tabbing over. With my OBS, I press F8 to pause. And in Visual Studio, pressing F8 does something weird. So really what we should be doing here is check for win state. And then we can change the player. Let's make this a to do. Otherwise, we'll think that's related to this, but it's not. And we'll just break that out. All right, so change player. And we don't even need this to be networked at that point. So, yeah. I don't think we need that networked anymore. And so we can just make this player's turn. which is good. The less networks, the better. But then we need to do basically what we did in start game. And we basically need a we need to flip the interactability of the buttons. So really we can do that in change player. I think that's what we'll do. So if Fusion Manager dot instance because this is network behavior, I could probably just do runner, right? The network runner this component is associated with. Yeah. So if I just do runner dot local player, why are these coming up? I totally have do not disturb on. If runner is local player, and player, I don't even need player ID. I mean, I could, but if runner dot local player equals player's turn, then for each button B in available buttons, B dot interactable equals true. If it's not your turn, we're going to do all that jazz, but make it not interactable. So checks to see if it's your turn. If it is your turn, make available buttons interactable. Really, this is unnecessary because it's simple logic and we kind of see. If it is not your turn, makes available buttons not interactable. All right. I think we've almost got most of this done. Now all we need is a start game. I think. So on player joined, player is joined with this reference. If player is 0, then we're going to spawn our game manager, which I think you saw that on video, right? So it looked like it. I just reviewed the footage. But if you don't have it, make sure you have your game manager prefab. I'm not sure why we're making the game manager script static here, because we don't really need to reference it. Wait, TicTacToe Box Game Manager instance. So I must have done it. The Game Manager already has it. So let's not do that. It doesn't. But we probably need to reference the Game Manager script. We don't need it to be static though. I hope not. So we have our game object, Game Manager prefab. So, network game object. We spawn the game manager prefab, and we get the game manager script from that prefab, and then we call on the game manager script. We tell it to start game. But we can't do that because we still get, I think, we see that, we see ourselves joining. So we don't really want to start the game when it's just us. So on player joined, if runner dot player count, runner dot session info dot player count is greater than 1. If we got more than one of us in this bad boy, then let's do that stuff. And we're starting the game on the game manager. And when the game manager starts the game, we set players turn to 0 and player O is not going to experience this at all because it's only getting called by player 0. So we need to make sure on awake, player's turn is set to 0. We still have to check for win state, but I think we might be good. Because if I play now, all right, so now if you notice, I've joined. I have not created the Game Manager script yet. All right, so let's do a build and see what happens. All right, so I added the open scene. I'm deleting the sample scene. I'm set to WebGL, and now we just build and run. New folder, TicTacToe. Toe, build. And do it. We're not using Ready Player Me, so I'm not worried about that. And yes, save my scene. Alright, moment of truth here. Oh, we're waiting for players. So if we come over here, and we hit play, and apparently I must have edited my CSS script because my player fills the window, so that's nice. Alright, so I have joined. We've connected to server. If I go back over here, if I press F12, what are we seeing? We see player 1 is joined, but did we start? Did we start the game? It does not appear to be that way because there's no Game Manager script. So what happened here? Fusion Manager. Oh, I know what's going on. Okay, so we're referencing this player that joined, and of course that player is not going to be 0. We want if runner.localPlayer is 0. Where else did I add other stuff at? If runner.localPlayer is 0, then it should work. So we're going to play again. All right, so I'm completely connected here. So now I'm going to go back to my history in my browser, open the game again. And I forgot to update this text, so we totally should have done that. Player has joined. We see 2 players. We have a game manager, and I can't do anything. But the game manager loaded. Why? There's our game manager. Okay. Oh. All right, because our game manager doesn't know what buttons are available. So we need to create that. So we have several things to do here. So first off, let's go to the Fusion Manager and let's go to Game Manager. Do we have this? Let's store this waiting for players as a variable. So on the Fusion Manager, let's do public text mesh pro UGUI, and we're just going to call this status message, I guess. And then up here we need to say using text mesh pro. And then if we come back over here, we can drag game status into the status message thing. And then come back over here, come to Game Manager. And then Oh, because it's .fusion. Let's just get rid of that. Save. Because that's annoying. Fusion Manager .instance dot. What did we call it? Status message. Dot text equals it's your turn. On awake, if because what I'm doing here is I want O when they join to know that it's X's turn. So if Fusion Manager .instance .runner .local player is player 1, which means they're O, the second player that joined. Then we want to set this as, copy waiting for X to move. Take those out. Waiting for X to move. Alright, should I make that a capital F? I don't know. Or a capital M. Alright, so that should say waiting for X to move. Otherwise, it's your turn. Then down here on change players, if it's your turn, we want it to say it's your turn. Else, shoot. Let's just say wait for your turn. Do that. Put period. Copy. Paste. Wait for your turn. Alright, so then the game manager, on awake, we need to populate the available buttons. So the available buttons, let's fix that. Our TicTacToe box, since we got rid of the Fusion namespace, we can get rid of that. Alright, so all the buttons are somewhere in boxes. So, because we don't really have any other place to put it, on Fusion Manager, shoot, we could just put the list here. We could do that. But just for something else to do, let's put it on the Fusion Manager, and let's do... I don't think I need the game. Do I want the game object or the transform? I think I want the transform. Public transform boxes parent. Alright, so we come here. There's so many different ways we could be doing this. I mean, we could just put all of those buttons in an array, but that's a lot of buttons. That's 9. I mean, it's 9 buttons that we have to deal with. But we can just go boxes parent, and let's see if this works. We can go to Game Manager, and then on awake, available buttons equals Fusion Manager dot instance dot boxes parent. So that's a transform dot get component. We want get components in children. Get components in children. Oh, but you're an array? Dagnabbit. Get components in children. But now it should be mad because cannot implicitly convert an array into a list. So can I go dot to list? I bet I can if I go using system.link, because that holds stuff like that. Can I do dot to list? Boom, I can. Haha. All right, so now when we start, we should be getting all of our available buttons. I don't want to do a build just yet, so I'm still going to kind of fake this. I'm going to go ahead and hit play. And now if I come back over here, let's go to our history, and let's look at my WebGL. Playing. All right, it says waiting for players. It's fine. Come over here. Why are we still waiting for players? Come on. We shouldn't be waiting for players anymore. There we go. Wow. Took a long time for you to register. So now it's saying it's my turn. If we go to the game manager, there's all of our buttons. Boom. We've clicked a button. It's rotated. But we don't have anything set up to tell the other player that we rotated anything. But we are getting so close to having this figured out. All right, so to tell the other player what we're rotating, this doesn't make the most sense, but it seems like it's the quickest and easiest way to do this. So we're already telling the game manager which button we're removing. So let's go ahead and tell the game manager to do the animation as well. So we're already animating for ourselves. We just need to tell the other player to animate it. And another thing we could do, we could make this a network behavior and then send an RPC to actually do this. There's so many different ways we can do this. Man, this is killing me. I mean, I guess it makes the most sense to set up an RPC. Geez, I hate this. Let's go ahead and collapse change player. So let's do a public void rotate box. And we need to know, because the TicTacToe box, what can we send? Because we can't network sync transforms, I don't think. All right, so here's what will work, I think. I just did a build test off camera. So we're not going to put our RPC here in the game manager. What we're going to do, and I've already done it, sorry, but on click, rather than set our animator, we are going to send an RPC. Now, on your end, this is probably still set to a mono behavior. So let's go ahead and change that to a network behavior. You'll have to use Fusion up here in the namespaces. And for a network behavior to work, this is my first time using a network behavior and a network object on a game object that doesn't get spawned. So once you've done that, you'll need to go to your prefab for the box. And then on here, you'll want to add the network object component. And in fact, if everything's saved and you didn't have any compile issues, it'll ask you to add it. And then it'll probably ask you to re-import it. The re-import button doesn't seem to work. So then you just save your prefab, go back to the main scene and hit play. But yeah, once you have the network object component added to your box prefab, then you should see that the TicTacToe Box Script now has this blue banner showing it's a network behavior. So on the network behavior, the only thing we did is we deleted those two lines that I showed you. And then we're adding this RPC rotate method, which is this. So if you remember the RPC methods, we need to put this RPC tag first. public void, and then we also did include RPC underscore rotate. And what I want as a parameter is just a string. And the string that we were using to trigger the animator, we're just putting those parameters here. So in this first if statement, if we're player 0, then we're going to rotate on the X, else we're going to rotate to O. And so then we just do on the RPC, animator.setTrigger, and then there's our trigger. All right, so this should work. One thing to note, though, that if a player ever disconnects and tries to come back, you would need to set up some way to sync up that available buttons, which you could do by making this collection here a networked collection. But we're not going to get into that for this tutorial. It's just a bit too much. So really, this should now work. We have everything but a win state. So let's go ahead and I'm going to do a build and run. And you should see that this RPC now takes care of telling the other player which box you're choosing to rotate. All right, here we go. It says it's my turn. Rotated. Now I need to wait for my turn. Let's go look at the editor. There we see the X rotated. Put an O there. Nice. Wait for your turn. Come back here. We see the O rotated. All right, we can play a little game here. We need to block that one. And yeah, we'll do that. O is going to go there. And then X would go here for the win. And now the hard part, if you didn't think the rest of that was, we need to figure out how to determine if we won or not. Alright, so rather than waste a lot of brain power on this, I decided to hit Google, because I was trying to think of what the best way to do this would be. And I just searched C# tic-tac-toe winner, and somebody already asked the question. And this answer here by user 3189157 basically makes it really straightforward, and it makes perfect sense. So there's 3 key steps here. So what we need to do is to know if we are a winner is if I'm player X, when I'm finished turning a box, I'll start by checking this first column and see if they are all X's. If they are, then I win. If not, then I'll check the next column, see if they're all X's. If not, then I'll check the next column. Okay, if none of those are, then I'll start checking the rows. And then if not the rows, then I'll check the diagonals. And if not, still not a winner, I'll see if all of them have been turned. And if they've all been turned and I'm not a winner, then it's a draw. So basically what I did is I wrote down the tuples, essentially, the 3 things, the 3 indexes that I would check for each one. And I thought of doing it by checking the rotation of the box to see if it was rotated for X. That was a pain in the butt. I actually spent 20 minutes on that, and that just made no sense. So what we're going to do is do something that makes the most sense, and we're going to use an array. And we might just do an array of ints, because we could do 0 and 1 rather than an array of strings. Even though, yes, it's X, yes, it's 0. I just feel like ints might compare better, but maybe I should make them strings. Let's use strings. So we're going to use an array because we're not going to be changing the length of it. So string, array, I don't know, scoreboard? No idea what we should call that. Maybe Playfield. Maybe that makes more sense. All right, and this equals new string array that is 9. Right? That's a thing, isn't it? Okay. So when we click on a box, we are telling the game manager to remove ourselves from the list. And so if we go to remove button over here, we find our index from the list. Ah, shoot. What I hate about this, oh man,
because I would love to be able to reuse that index, but we can't because the list is changing its size. So what we need is we need to get the child index. So let's just create a new method, and we're just going to call it public void update playfield. And we are going to ask for an index. And then on the TicTacToe box, we're going to say GameManager dot instance dot update playfield, and we're going to say is transform dot sibling get sibling index. Boom. Did you know that existed? Get sibling index. I love that. I'm just doing this off the top of my head now after failing the other way that you're not seeing on the recording. All right, so if we transmit the set sibling index, we also need to know what we're setting it as. Because how do we know if we're setting it as X or not? So what we could do is we could just put this here, and then let's have not only an index, but let's get a string. Save that, and then the string that we're going to set here is going to be X. And then we're going to copy this, and the string we're going to set here is O. So now what we're going to do is we're going to update the playfield. So playfield dot set value of index, and the value we're going to set is S. No, we have to do it the other way around. S index. Okay, so now that we know what's what in the playfield, after we update the playfield, we can then check for win state. And so check win state. So we're not sending an RPC here though. So we're checking the win state for ourselves, which that's probably fine. But we're also only updating the playfield we're also only updating the playfield with our own information. So really what we need to do is create another RPC. RPC, public void RPC, update playfield. And this is going to get, this needs an int index, and this needs a string S. And so then this will do this. And it's going to set index and string. And so this is going to be RPC update playfield. And this is going to be RPC update playfield. Alright, so hopefully that will do what we need it to do. We need to add a semicolon there. And so they should, both players should then be updating the playfield. And after updating the playfield, they're both going to check the win state. And so now is where we are going to check the various indices of the array. I've tried for loops, and they never seem to do what I wanted them to do. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do an if statement. So if, first off, we need to know string we're comparing to. So string String to check, I guess, is what I will do. And then I'm just going to make this an empty string. And then if player's turn is 0, then string to check equals X. Else string to check equals O. Okay, so if it's player 1, which is player 0, it's X. If it's the next player, the string to check is O. Alright, so then if Playfield, so this is going to be checking columns. Check columns, and this is column 1. If Playfield 0 is string to check, and copy, paste, Playfield 1, and Playfield 2 equals string to check. Why can't I shift enter this? There we go. So if everything in column 1 equals string to check, yeah, that should work. I feel like I should be able to make it cleaner. And sorry this video I've slowed down. I've had to rework this logic like 4 times now, and I've kind of lost my energy. But, yeah. Alright, so we're just going to stick with that. And then let's get our little text here. And we're going to say string to check plus wins. Save. Alright, so that's column 1. Alright, so let's look at column 2 now. So column 2 is going to be 3, 4, 5. 3, 4, 5. And column 3 is going to be 6, 7, 8. 6, 7, and 8. And then let's do rows next. So paste, we're going to check rows. This is going to be row 1. And that's going to be 0, 3, 6. It's going to be row 2, 1, 4, 7. And then row 3 is going to be 2, 5, 8. And then let's check diagonals. Diag 1, diag 2, and that's 0, 4, and 8. And then 2, 4, and 6. Save. Alright. I actually kind of like this win state better. So let's build and run and see what happens. Alright. Let's try this again. It's my turn. Pressed X. Oh, I'm not sure why I had to click twice. I think it's just because I have to focus on the... Yeah, it's fine now. Alright, so hopefully we win. You know what? I wonder if we did win, but it's still doing the bit because it's still doing player turn, and I was dumb, and I didn't add in debug logs to know for sure. Because when we change player, we are updated it again. Oh, geez. This needs to be this needs to be outside the for loop anyways. I mean, not that it was really hurting anything, but we were just setting that text 9 times. But I'm betting we're good here. I'll add some debug logs here. So like debug log is going to be this, right? And so let's just copy, paste, 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 paste. All right, we'll build and run one more time, and I think this is going to be it. All right, so let's see if that worked. X, O, X, O, oh, well, that works. X, so now we should see that we're the winner. X wins! Yay! So our logic works. Let's also make sure that the one in the browser also got that. Yes, great. X wins. So it works. We just need to make sure that if we do win, that we don't continue on with the rest of... Oh, wrong project. With the rest of the GameManager logic, which would be changing the player. All right, so let's go back to our GameManager, and on check win state. So if we win, we want to let's do up here in the check win state, bool has winner equals false. And then if we have a winner, let's just add has winner equals true. And let's copy that. And then let's paste it into all of these. Like so. And keep going. Okay, and then so once we get to the end here, now if has winner is false, then change player. And that's the only thing that's going to be updating the text, right? Yeah, I think so. All right, so I think that will catch that. I just want to make sure change player has been removed here. Yeah, on the remove button from list, we don't want to change the player there anymore. All right, now let's build and run and see if that makes sure our message on the screen here shows up correctly now. All right, it works. So now that we know all our logic's working, we have it debugged up here. The next step would be to finish our game loop, where we need to put up some type of button to return to lobby, which means we also need to create a lobby. So those are the next two pieces. Otherwise, we already have a tic-tac-toe game that works. So what we're going to do is we're not going to start the game at the start anymore. What we want to do instead is we want to join a lobby. So before we do that, we should probably set up some UI to kind of support the lobby. So let's see. We have our canvas. That's that. And then we have our boxes. That's that. So what if we just take these and we just create an empty parent and we call this the game stuff. All right. And so what we can do is we can disable that. All right, and so now let's create a new canvas. And we're going to call this our connection canvas. And what we want to do here is I'm just going to have it display the room list by default. and then have the option to create a room if you don't want to join one that's already there. All right, so let's create a TextMesh Pro object, and let's Alt-Shift center top, and then center, and we're just going to call this room list. And let's go back to our canvas, make sure we scale a screen size. That's fine. Bring that down just a little bit. And I'm just going to call this my room list title. And then what I want is a scroll view. So I'm going to right click here, go to UI, and go to scroll view. And let's just go ahead, Alt-Shift, and I'm going to stretch bottom center like that. And then let's go ahead and bring this up to like that. And I'm going to find the horizontal scroll bar and delete. Whoa, undo. That was right. Yeah, horizontal scroll bar. All right, and then let's just remove the scroll bar from the hierarchy. And yeah, so the next thing I'm going to do is also, I don't like the curved background for this, so we'll just do that. Although I liked the transparency it kind of gave a little bit better. I'm not sure why the transparency seems different when there's not an actual sprite there. I guess I could just, oh, there we go. All right. So now we need a an example room list entry. So let's go into the content and let's create an empty. And let's go ahead, and I think I need to look at the scene view for this. Let's switch to 2D. Let's just go ahead and do that. Yeah, what if I F on you? No, what if I F on the scroll view? There we go, that's a little bit better. Alright, so that looks super weird. Maybe if I adjust my game view window a bit. Man, why is the scroll view? You know what I need to do is I need to go to my canvas, and let's keep the height in mind a bit too. What if we go 0.5 on that? And then what if I go to my scroll view and I just make the height less? Alright, we'll live with that. Alright, so here I have my room entry. I'm going to just go ahead and call it prefab because it will be a prefab. And I want this to stretch, where do I want its pivot point? I think I want it at the top. So Alt-Shift, and we're going to do that. That looks fine. And then I'm going to go ahead and add my vertical layout group here. And I'm going to keep it upper left. I'm not going to expand anything. My room entry prefab width is all jacked up. I'm just going to go see what my content width is, which we don't know. I'm just going to go ahead and Alt-Shift, return that to center. And it's 980. I hate messing with scroll views. Because now I want to bring this up to like, I want my scroll view to fit or my content to fit the scroll view. Something like that. Alright, so width is 980, and we're probably not going to make it that high, but now in here, we're going to go UI TextMesh Pro, and actually in this, we're going to make this a horizontal layout group. We're not going to expand everything, and let's go middle, we're just going to go ahead and do middle center on this. Let me make sure my text object is centered horizontally and vertically, and we're just going to be like, this is the room name, and let's give it a bit more width because maybe we want longer room names. Okay, and so we're just going to call this room name, and then let's go ahead and duplicate that, and we're going to do a player count for this one, so like 1 out of 2, and that one does not need to be near as wide. Do something like, I can't quite see. Turn gizmos off. Gizmos back on. Yeah, we need to put some spacing on this guy. Let's put some spacing. Okay. Let's do 50. And then we need a button. So UI button text mesh pro, and this is just going to be the join button. And let's make the height similar to the other stuff. So it should be height of 50. And yeah, I'm just going to keep that font the way that it is. And then let's go to our room entry prefab. I mean, it's not really laid out very well. I mean, we could space it, but as you can see, it's a bit wonky. Maybe middle left's the way to go, and then space it out. I think that's the way to go. Something like that. Alright, and if I want my join button to move over a little bit more, I could always come here to the player count and make that wider. Do something like that. Then go back to the room entry prefab. Bring the spacing down. And I'm just going to live with that. And really my room name, I can now, let's make it not centered. And then that jacks everything up. But we can come over here, go to padding, and give it a little bit of left padding. And then let's adjust the spacing a bit to where that comes more like that. Gosh, I don't know. I wish there was an easier way to do stuff like this. I'm just horrible at laying this out. If I do way like that, and then bring the spacing in. Alright, I'm just going to live with that. Alright. So that's going to be... Boy, that's so ugly. You know what? We're going to remove this. And I'm just going to do it manually. I like that much better. Okay. So here we have our room entry prefab. Let's see what happens, what it would look like if we had multiple. And as you can see, our vertical layout group is just a bit too spaced. Actually, we have no spacing. The spacing is on these guys. So if we adjust the height down to, let's say, 70, and that's doable. All right, so I think we have our prefab almost sorted. We need to create another script. So in my TicTacToe folder, I'm going to create a new script, and we're going to call this room entry prefab script. I don't know. And it didn't open. All right, it's finished compiling. I'm just going to go ahead and drag it onto the room entry prefab here, and let's go edit it. This is going to be a super simple script. It's just going to hold the UI elements for us. Is it going to open, or is it just going to let us stare at it? There we go. All right, I'm sure I'm not going to need any collections. We're not going to need any of that good stuff. So we're just going to pop this down so I can remember what I'm looking at. And so I want public. We're going to use Text Mesh Pro, so using TM Pro. And so this is going to be Text Mesh Pro UGUI. This is going to be room name. And then we're going to have a public Text Mesh Pro UGUI, down. This is going to be player count. And then we're just going to have public button. Oh, I hate that when that happens. Button, join button. All right, so we need to make sure that we're using UI. I'm just going to Alt-Enter here. And using UniEngine.ui. All right, and I think that's all we need. And we'll come back over here. And let's just go to the prefab. And we're just going to drag in room name, player count, join button. Nice. And then go to my prefabs folder. And drop this in there. And I need a couple other buttons. I'm going to leave that there just for reference. And I want to create another button. Shoot. What if I... Alright, so I don't want the child alignment to be upper left anymore. I want it to be upper center. Okay, that didn't really impact anything. Great. I mean, it did this. So now I'm also going to want a bit more spacing. So what's it going to look like if I have a few more of those? I want my button on the bottom. Yeah, so these really, they don't need all that height. So let's bump this down to 50. And then let's check this content spacing. Excuse me. Why does it feel like my button isn't getting spaced out like the rest of them? Isn't that weird? What's my alignments look like in these guys? I mean, I guess it doesn't need 50. We can go 40 on everything? 40. Join button can be 40. This is such a waste of time. And then we set this height to 40. And then let's delete the other two. And then let's duplicate this so that we can see what it looks like. Why is the button seem like it's just mashing itself up against that when the others are totally spaced? I mean, I can do that. I'm just going to deal with that. This is taking way too long anyways. Also, I want my button to be bigger. Let's make this 40. And this is just going to be my create room button. Alright, so maybe this button needs to be a bit bigger. Alright. Create room button. Create room button. Okay. And then let's delete those. Let's take this. Let's apply the overrides. Alright, doesn't look half bad. Alright, so what's my create room button going to do? What is my create room button going to do? Well, we need a script on it. So let's go create C# script, create room button. And let's put the create room button script on the create room button. And I need to go to my Fusion Manager. And I don't want it to be in the callback section. Let's just put it here so it's near the top. We're going to do public void create room. And really, they're not rooms. Fusion calls them sessions. So I'm going to go ahead and call this method create session. And we'll save that. And is my Fusion Manager an instance? Yeah. And now my create room button. We have this, so we can come in here. And then we can just, we don't need any of this stuff up here. And on private void awake, we need to get component, button, and then we need the UI namespace. Again, that was Alt-Enter to make that appear when my cursor was on it. On click, add listener. You know what? Can I just hit tab? No. Some things are smart and you can hit tab, others you can't. And our listener is just going to be create session. And I don't think I need to put the brackets in there. So now I can do private void create session. There it is. It's happy. And so now I want Fusion. Did I call it Fusion Manager? I didn't. What is my Fusion Manager script called? Yeah, it's called Fusion Manager. Oh, but is my Fusion? Why isn't it open? Wasn't I opening it here? Why is it not in one of my tabs? What namespace was I using? That's my issue. So let's just go ahead and put it in the same namespace. Cut, paste. You know what? I should do that over here too. Copy, paste, shift enter, cut, paste, save. So we're gonna go Fusion Manager .instance .create session. Just like that. And so now that create room button should be ready to be prefabbed. Put in the prefabs folder. And I'm just going to duplicate that and call this refresh room button. Jeez, that spacing's ridiculous. I'm just gonna leave it though. Refresh room. Or refresh. I'm just gonna call it refresh. Refresh! Okay. It's not refresh room button, it's refresh. And we need to unpack this. And I need to remove this. And then we're gonna create another script. And create... There would be another way to do this without creating all these extra scripts. When I created the buttons, I could subscribe to them in my Fusion Manager. But I'm just going to do this because it just breaks things apart, makes it easier to read. Refresh room list. Alright, so let's put the refresh room list on here. And let's come over here. You know what? I'm just going to come over here and I'm just going to copy this whole thing. And just rename it refresh room list to match the name of the file. And then we're gonna just call this refresh and refresh. And then I need to go to the Fusion Manager and I'm just going to put the method here, public void refresh. Probably not the best naming, but that's what I'm going to do for now. Oops, refresh. And save. Alright, so let's take my refresh button and let's put it in the prefabs folder. And then we can remove all of that. And I'm going to save this scene. Now I'm going to go into my Fusion Manager. And I need to add a... let's just put a header in here, just to break things up. And we're just going to call this room list. Why is the header upset? Use the property attribute to add a header above some fields. Inspector attribute is not valid in this deck. Oh, I just got to put something underneath it. So we're just going to do public transform scroll content. And then I want public game object room entry prefab, public game object create room button prefab, public game object refresh button prefab. Save. Alright, now over here in Unity we can see our little room list section now, and I'm just going to put our content there. You can go to my prefabs, and there's the room entry prefab, there's the create room button prefab, and then there's the refresh button prefab. Should probably name that something better, like that. Alright, great. Back to the Fusion Manager. So, on awake, if runner is null, we're creating one. And on private void start, we're starting the game. But we don't want to do that anymore. Instead, we want to public void join lobby. And so we're just going to call this join lobby now. And how do we join the lobby? Well, we should have our runner from the awake. So we're just going to do runner.join session lobby. And this could take a lot of different things. It wants to have a lobby ID, but we can just keep it null. And it should just take care of it for us. Right? I shouldn't need to put anything because there's default values for everything. but it's not happy. Why are you not happy? There's no argument given that corresponds to the formal parameter session lobby. Oh, I missed that one. So session lobby, I think that just means session lobby shared, because that's the type of game mode that we're playing. Great. So I don't really even need... you can name the lobby, but for this situation, I'm not, because everybody's just going to use the same lobby. So join session lobby. Huzzah! So now what we're going to do is we need to go to our unused Fusion callbacks, and we need... what's it called? On something updated, on session list updated. Let's take you. Cut. And let's put you here. On session list updated, we want to update room list. All right. And we're just going to come up. I'll just do it right here. So private void update room list. You know what? I'm not going to do it in a separate deal because I want to use the session list here. So for each transform child in scroll content, we want to take the child. No, we want to destroy child.gameObject, because you can't destroy transforms, but you can destroy game objects. All right, and then for each session info, which I'm just looking right here, right? This is our session list. So for each session info session, again, those are our rooms, in the session list, we are going to game object. We're going to call this session entry equals instantiate entry, what do I call that? Room entry prefab. And can't I tell it that I want a parent, comma, yes, transform parent, scroll content. Is there anything else I can tell it? Instantiate in world space. I can't remember if I like that to be true or false. UI does like one or the other. I'm just going to leave it because I don't think I had to do it in one of my other projects. But one thing I will do, even though it might not be necessary, is I'm going to take my session entry. I'm going to set my local scale. Oh, we got to go transform.local scale. I don't know if it's an issue all the time, but a lot of the times when I instantiate UI objects, the scale gets all jacked up. And so we're just going to say vector 3.1. And so that basically sets the scale to 111. All right, so we've created our entry prefab, and we've spawned it, but now we need to get the script from it. So we want our we want our room entry prefab script equals session entry dot get component room entry prefab script. All right. So now script dot room name. So that's the text mesh pro object, but we want to set the text of it. Dot text equals session info. No, session dot. And check, anytime you have something that has a property of name, check the description and make sure it's what you want, because there's also lowercase name for like game objects and other things, and you don't want that. You make sure you're getting the right name. Really, you don't want a property to be called name because it just makes things upset. That's why it's a capital N instead of a lowercase n. But yeah, we want to store the current room name. And then we want... we got to build a string for our player count. So, let's say string player count equals So now we're building the string. So it's going to be session dot player count, which is the current number of peers in that session, plus, then we want a slash, then plus session dot max players. Which reminds me, where are we creating our room? Make sure we set max player count to 2. So we don't forget. And actually, it's doing it here in the start game anyways, so we're probably fine. Where did I leave off at? Okay, so string player count, that should be good. So now we can go script dot, I feel like my laptop's sliding around. Not the room name. Player count equals player count. It's a little confusing, but not confusing at the same time. Why cannot complicitly, dot text. Okay. Another thing we need to do is if session dot is visible, we're going to do all this. Because we're only going to do this if the session's visible. We don't want to put an entry in our room list if they've set the room to be private. All right, so if it's visible, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so we've created everything except now we need to handle the join button. So if session dot is open, if this equals false, then we're going to set our script.joinButton.interactable to false. So if the session's not open, it's not private, but we still see it's a session. We don't want the join button to be clickable if the room isn't open. We could even go further on this, and we could just say if the player count is greater than 2, or if the player count is greater than 1, make the join button not interactable. In fact, I'll go ahead and do that, because maybe we forget to close the room. So, or session.playerCount is greater than 1. Cool. So that should create our room list. So now that we've created our room list, now we're going to add our other 2 buttons, the create room and the refresh button. So game object, create room button equals instantiate create room button prefab, scroll content is its parent, and then create room button.transform.local scale equals vector 3.1. And then we're just going to take all this fun logic and we're going to do refresh. What did we call that thing? Refresh button prefab. Wonder why it wasn't showing up down there. Where did I leave off? Poink. Refresh button prefab. Oh, and really I need it here. It didn't matter what I put here. That's why it wasn't showing up. Use of unsigned. Yeah, we should call this just refresh button. Alright, then we're happy here. And then refresh button. Transform local scale vector 3.1. Okay. So, if I were to build and run now, which I'm going to do, it's not going to work. It's not going to show us anything because we still need to create a session. We're just going to have an empty list. All right, so how are we going to create a session? So I'm not going to need to worry about this player count to 2 because I already have that here. But what I'm going to do is I need to create for this purpose, I'm not going to worry about putting up an input field and letting people name their rooms. I'm just going to generate a random room name. So, how do we do that? No, I want string. Let's see if I can just do it all in one line. String random room name equals room dash plus random. Can I just do random dot range random? I'm going to look this up again. I forget what the lines of code are. It is random dot range, so I don't know what the deal is. Maybe because this is a string variable I'm assigning, and so it's mad. So if I just do random dot range between 1,000 and 9,999. If I just do that, why are you mad? Random is ambiguous, so we need to do Unity engine.random. There we go. All right, so we have our random room name, and really, we should make this a private string random room name, like so. And yeah, now we can just get rid of that. And then we can come down here, and we're just going to say this is the random room name. No. Let's call it room name. Room name. Why are you upset? What's going on here? Name can be simplified. What? Enter. I don't know what you're talking about. Should this be lowercase? No. Yes? What is your problem? Fusion Manager already contains a definition for room name. Okay. Okay, great. So, goodbye. But let's move this down here, because that goes kind of with the room list, even though it's not shown in the inspector. And so we can call this room name. And this will be room name. Great. So now we can create a session. And we just need to now call start game, right? Super. But now we need we need join room logic. So public void join session string. I'm just going to call that room instead of room name. And so room name is going to equal room. And then we're going to start game. All right. And so what are we doing with this method now? Well, we're going to go to our room entry prefab script. And we're actually going to put some logic on here. So private void awake join button dot on click dot add listener, and it's going to be join session. Nope, not those. Boink. Visual Studio's not keeping up with me. Why are you mad? Okay, because just I haven't done anything yet. So private void join session is going to then go Fusion Manager dot join. Oh no, we need dot instance dot join session and room name. Huzzah! Room name dot text. Huzzah! There we go. Great. And I think that might be it for our room list. So I am going to pause while I build and run this bad boy. Let me make sure my Fusion Manager, I'm not missing anything. Okay, that GameManager script must get added at runtime. All right, yeah, I'm going to build and run this thing now. Hold up. My create room button. Okay, I just wanted to double check I put the logic on that. Okay, now I'm for real building and running now. All right, here we are. So it's running because there is no rooms in the room list. So I have my ugly create room and refresh buttons here. I can refresh. Did I actually write logic for that? I don't think I did. So we'll need to go back and do that. But if I just create a room, oh, we didn't set up any more logic after that. We're going to assume the room is created. Let's go play in Unity and see if we actually see that room pop up. And we didn't. So I just maybe it didn't register my click. So let's try clicking create room again. And something's not happy. Why did I build this in WebGL anyways? Come back over here. Let's try playing one more time. All right, so it didn't work. Let me go figure out why. Okay, so it did work. So I just went back and I started in Unity instead, and then here. So it did work. But the only issue is that I didn't set up the create room logic to actually put us in the game. Same thing that if I come over here and click join, I think if I check the debug log, it should tell me like what player I am. Yeah, right here. So it knows that I joined because I joined as player 2, but we can't play. So let's fix that. All right, so let's go over here and do that. All right, so let's go into our Fusion Manager. And we're going to add some more transform variables here. So I am just going to add a public transform, and this is going to be game stuff. And then in the room list, I will put at the top public transform connection canvas. And the reason that we're adding those transforms is we need to activate one, deactivate the other. So let's come back over here into Unity. And then there's game stuff. Boink. And then connection canvas. Boink. So then back in our Fusion Manager. Join. So let's see. On create session. Let's actually go to our create room button. And on click, we're also going to do get the component again, which I probably should have saved as a variable, but let's just do interactable equals false. Because when we click the create room button, we don't want it to be interactable anymore. And if we go back to the Fusion Manager, when we start game, on player joined, let's do connection canvas dot set active. Okay, dot transform. It is a transform, isn't it? Oh, I shouldn't have done it as a transform. I should have done it as a game object. Oh well, I'm gonna be lazy. Game object dot set active false. And then game stuff dot game object dot set active true. Okay, but what do we do when we refresh? Refresh, I think it's just runner dot. All right, so I actually went into my other Fusion project where I have a room list, and I don't actually have my refresh button hooked up. It doesn't do anything. So the only way I know to force a room list refresh would be to disconnect from the lobby and rejoin. And we're not going to do that. So if you really, really want to force it, you can do that. And I think if the room list were to change, like if a new room was created, I think you're still going to get that callback. Let me close that. Let's come over here. So the on session list updated, that might update if a new room was created. Don't quote me on that, but we're just going to leave it as is. So where do we leave off? On create room button. Okay, boom. On player joined. We do that stuff. So yeah, let's just build and run and see if now it can play, right? Because I think I did what I needed to do there. All right, let's see what happens now. If I click create room, there we go. So I think this is normal behavior. I think it's supposed to hide the tic-tac-toe board until the next player joins. That is not the right project. Oh, there we go. Let's try hitting play now and see what happens. I should probably remove the refresh button since it doesn't do anything. But here we can see the room. What happens if we join it? It says waiting for players, wait for your turn. We are missing the game board. Why are we missing the game board? That is odd. Let's look into that. Well, real quick while I'm thinking about it, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this refresh method in the Fusion Manager because we're not going to use it anymore. And come back over here and find the connection canvas. Where do we have the logic for that? Let's clear that. Oh, I have an error. Well, there we go. And then we're just going to get rid of... Really, I can delete that whole class. So I'm going to do that. So go to project, refresh room list. We're going to delete that. And then we're going to go into the prefabs. If this thing will keep up with me. And we're going to delete the refresh button prefab. I'm going to go to the Fusion Manager. And we're going to clear that out, but we're also going to go delete that variable, the refresh button prefab. And I think we're probably good now in removing the refresh button. Nope, it still says something's mad. Fusion Manager, here. So we got to get rid of these two lines. Inside the on session list updated where it was instantiating the refresh button. Okay, so I'm not sure yet why the tic-tac-toe boxes disappeared, but my thought is it's because they are network objects, or at least objects that, yeah, they're network objects that are in the scene but aren't active at the start. So to test that theory, I'm going to go ahead and activate the game stuff. Okay, let's try two separate scenes. So let's go File, Save As, put in my TicTacToe folder, and we're going to call this TicTacToe Playfield. And then this other one we're going to call TicTacToe Lobby. Let's go to the lobby. Let's delete the game stuff. And Fusion Manager. Let's open this up. And we're going to have some issues here because of those status messages. So we're going to do something about that. But we don't need a lot of this anymore. But what we do need is we need to go to build settings, and we need to put our playfield in here. And let's just go ahead and go to our playfield, and let's delete the connection canvas. Save that. Let's go back to the lobby. I think our Fusion Manager automatically is do not destroy on load. I think the runner takes care of that. Let's see what happens if I hit play. And it's not doing any of our logic because of that stuff that's missing. So let's come over here. Let's look at our variables. We don't want any of this. Really, we shouldn't need anything but this room list stuff. I mean, we need all that. Get rid of this. That's probably what's getting stuck. I was trying to do stuff on awake. Let's try to do stuff on start. Okay. So get rid of those conflicts. Oh boy. Let's undo, because it still wants that status message. The game manager uses it. Undo, undo, undo. There's status message. Okay, let's leave status message. Let's get rid of these. Oh, and these. Save. Go back here. And then Fusion Manager Document Edition for Boxes Parent. What do you need that for? Okay, so we do need Boxes Parent to be back. I'm just going to add it manually because I don't want to undo all that. So let's just do public. Is it a... It doesn't matter if we make it a transform or a game object. Boxes Parent. Save. There, it's happy. And then we just got to come back over here. But we don't know what the box's parent is yet because it's in a different scene. So this isn't too hard to fix. Let's go look at our other scene. Let's create a folder for the scenes so I don't have to keep coming in here. And I can find it on the left side. Let's go to the Playfield. Alright, so there's the game stuff, boxes. Alright, it's just called boxes. So in the game manager, let's find transform boxes parent equals, let's make it a game object. Game object boxes parent equals game object dot find boxes. We don't have very much stuff in the scene, it'll be easy to find. And then it should be able to... Oh, it doesn't want it to be a transform. So transform, find it dot transform. It does matter. Oh, and then this needs to be that. Cool. All right, so that's happy. Fusion Manager doesn't need the box's parent anymore. And that's the TicTacToe Playfield. So now we need to set the scene. So we need a scene reference. I don't think I can just put one here, right? Can I? Alright, looks like I can. So when we start game, when we tell it the scene index 1, it should automatically change to that scene. Let's see if we can... Oh, Fusion Manager should not be in here because this is the Playfield. So let's go back to the lobby. Let's hit play and let's see if it at least loads us into the other scene. Alright, let's go ahead and create the room. And it did. And it's waiting for the players. Nice. So, it's not going to be this easy, is it? Like, there's no way it's that easy. All right, I'm going to do a build and run and see if it was that easy. Was that all we needed to change? There's no way. There's no way. Let's see what happens. All right, I have a working meeting in 4 minutes, so let's see if this works real quick. Let's go ahead and create our room. Nothing's clickable. Good. Whoops. Let's hit play. All right, let's join the room. It says waiting for players. See, I don't think that's going to get updated because I think that was getting updated by Fusion, and it doesn't know where it is. Oh, and that has a missing reference too. Can we click it? Oh, what is that doing open? Come over here. Yeah, we can't click anything. So we do have some things still that we need to fix. All right, well, my meeting was canceled, moved till tomorrow. So let's dig into this now. So, Fusion Manager, on player joined, it shouldn't need to do this because we're changing scenes. But the rest of this is fine because it's the GameManager script. So could that have been the only issue? Was that set active thing? Let me hit play and find out. All right, let's create our room. Should probably come over here and hit play. We're waiting for players. And let's join the room. No errors. We got a null reference exception on the GameManager. All right. Hey, but that works. But not over here. But I was able to click something there. All right, so the null reference on the GameManager, line 28, probably has to do with updating that text. Yeah. So we need to find this status message text in the scene. So let's go look at that scene. Let's look at the Playfield, game stuff, canvas, game status, and let's just copy that. And then on awake, we need, let's just do a private text mesh pro UGUI status message, and then on awake status message equals game object dot find this bad boy dot get component text mesh pro UGUI. We got to add the namespace, Alt Enter. And so now, if we are player 1, we can just say status message dot text, wait for your turn. So we can remove this now, or edit that to say status message dot text. I'm just going to Control F, status message. So let's delete that. Here we can see another one, and 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 another one. All of these. Okay. Did we get them all? Boom, 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 boom. Ah, missed a couple. Get rid of that. Get rid of that. Okay, I think I got them all now. Cool. All right, build and run it again. Man, I'm so glad Unity accidentally switched me to Windows build instead of WebGL. It just builds so much faster. All right. Over here, we're waiting for players. Over here, I'm in the wrong scene. Let's go back to the lobby, hit play. And we should see our room. Let's join it. Waiting for my turn. There's an X, beautiful. There's an O, beautiful. X, O. Whoops. X wins. Great. So switching scenes was not difficult, or splitting up the logic into two different scenes was not difficult at all. So now all we need to do is, after we win, we need to go back to the lobby. Now you can set up a button to do it, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to set like a 2-second wait for the purpose of this tutorial, and then we'll just go back to the lobby. So we need to find the GameManager, because the GameManager is handling the win states. So check win state. If we win, blah, 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 blah. Okay. So where do we Where did we put the lost? Where's our lost logic? Lose? Lost? Seriously, how are we handling displaying if you lose? We have the... Oh, we say who won. So and so wins. And then it says has winner to true. What are we using that for? So if has winner equals false, change player, else, here's where we're going to manage send back to lobby. So there's a few different ways we can do this, but first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start coroutine, go to lobby, and then let's come down here and let's do a private enumerator, go to lobby, and then what we're going to do is you're going to yield return new wait for seconds, and let's just do 2F. And this is upset because we're not using the right collections, so system collections. Great. And once we're done waiting, all right, and so what we're going to do just to test this is, I'm wondering, if we just do runner, no, we need to do Fusion Manager.instance.runner.shutdown. So if we have the runner shut down, let's go ahead and also tell it, I don't want it to destroy anything. Notice there's some methods here. So I don't know what game object it's wanting to destroy. So I have, if you know, comment down below. Is it this game object? Is it the game object the runner is on? But either way, I do not want it destroyed, so I'm going to go false. I want the shutdown reason, which we're doing this on purpose, so we're saying the shutdown reason is okay. And I'm also going to force the shutdown procedure, because we want it to do it, so do it. Don't want to have any reason why it wouldn't shut down. So then we should be able to go to our Fusion Manager. And on session shutdown, which is going to be right here, let's go ahead and cut this out. Because if you remember, we have this region of unused callbacks. And let's just put it right here. So on the runner shutdown, what are we going to do? On runner shutdown, do I need to destroy the runner? I think I do. One thing I also found, I actually built a Playmaker integration for Fusion 2, and while I was testing it, I found that if you try to start another session too quick after shutdown and destroying your runner, it gets really confused. But in this situation, we're just joining a lobby. It might still get a little mad, so I might want to wait until end of frame. So I think I'm going to do a coroutine here just to be safe. So start coroutine, return to lobby. And so this is going to be a private enumerator, return to lobby, and I'm going to yield return new wait until end of frame, and I think I have to do that, and I think I need to alt enter use system collections. So once we're at the end of frame, before the end of frame, I'm actually going to, missing a semicolon. I'm going to runner. I'm going to destroy the runner. All right, so that should, you have to spell things correctly though. That should destroy the runner component that's on the Fusion Manager, because you can't reuse runner components. So with Pun, we could technically disconnect from a session and then connect another session, but with the network runners, you don't really have that option. you have to completely destroy the runner after shutting down and then create a new runner. So we're going to destroy the runner, we're going to wait till the end of frame, and then we're going to just scene manager dot, I guess, load scene. There we go. Load scene 0. Aha! You will take an index. So in theory now, game gets over. Game manager. Game is over. If we have a winner, we're going to start this coroutine, go to lobby. So we're waiting 2 seconds. And then we're telling our runner to shut down. When that happens, we get this on shutdown callback. And then we're going to start this coroutine, return to lobby, in which case the first thing we do is we destroy our runner. Then we wait till the end of the frame. And then we load scene index 0, which when that happens, we're going to have an issue because our first scene has our Fusion Manager. I mean, so how do we support that? We come up here in awake. If runner is null, but why am I doing this in start? Really, I want to do this in awake. If instance equals null, instance is this. So let's cut that. Why did I not have this in awake to begin with? So if instance equals null, instance is this. Else, if it's not null, right? Because it already exists in the scene. So if it's not null, but is this going to work? Destroy. Can I just say game object, or do I need to say this game object? Looks like I can just say game object. Okay, I don't know if this is going to work, but let's close that. Let's build and run and find out. All right. So it built, it ran. I'm going to create a room. All right, this one sees our room. Let's join it. It's waiting for the turn. X, O, X, O, X. I win. And then it goes back to the right scene. The issue is we are keeping the Fusion Manager that we already have, but we're not starting its logic back over again. So, we're going to load that scene. So basically we need to subscribe to when the scene manager changes the scenes. So we can do that in awake, I think. So scene manager dot active scene changed would probably work. Scene loaded. Let's go with scene loaded. So scene loaded plus equals tab. There we go. Scene manager loaded. So if first off, I just want to debug.log, see if this happens at start. Because if it does happen at start, I need to add a little bit more logic. So let's look at our console, let's clear it, and let's hit play. Yep, scene loaded. Okay. Right, that's what I call the debug? Yeah. Alright. So we need to do is I'm just going to set a private bool first load, and it's going to be true. And I'm going to say if first load is false, we're going to set Well, if it's not false, we're going to say first load is false. All right. All right, so if it's false, then we are going to test what scene we're in. So if arg0 is 0, can I apply to scene and index? So if I go this dot index, build index, great. All right, so if the scene's build index is 0, we know that we are in the lobby. And if first load is false, we know we're in the lobby not the first time around. And so we need to tell our Fusion Manager to join the lobby again. So join lobby. Join the lobby, the Fusion lobby, not the lobby scene. All right, so I'm going to build and run now and see what happens. Dang, it's still mind-blowing to me how fast that's building. All right, I'm going to go ahead and play that while I tell this to create room. We're waiting on players over there. Make our window a bit bigger. You know, rather than free aspect, let's just get a 16 by 9 one. Okay, let's do... oh, okay, there we go. Yeah, okay, great. All right, join. All right, we're waiting for our turn. Let's see what happens when the game ends. Will we have a completed game loop? Yay, X wins! We're in the room list. And all sorts of fusion errors. Have some type of null reference exception, object. See, this is the issue that I had on another project when trying to connect again. So it's going to be happening here on our Fusion Manager. And the issue is we're missing all of these game objects. So our runner is missing because it's created on awake and we didn't create it again. All right, so let's come back over here. Join lobby. If runner is null, then runner equals, and I'm just going to copy this to save my brain. We're going to create it. All right, let's go through and find anything else that could potentially be null now. On player joined. Game manager script is fine. On session list updated. That's where we're going to have our issue. So, like scroll content. We don't know what scroll content is. So we can say, we could find these, or we can make them static and like put a script on them and instance them, but let's not do that. Let's just do if scroll content is null, then scroll content equals, what is scroll content? It's a transform. So we're going to do game object dot find. Oh, let's close that. And connection canvas. It's probably just called content, right? Yeah, content. Let's just be super lazy and copy. Fine. This is probably not the best way to do this, but it's going to work for us. And then we're trying to get the transform. And not GameObject.find, but GameObject.find. Lowercase looks on the game objects that this class is on. Or this component is on. Alright, so. Alright, we should still know what the room entry prefab is. Scroll content, blah, blah, blah. That's on that. Okay. Create room button, that's the prefab. That should be fine. Scroll content. Okay, you know, I really think we should be good there. Let's build and run again. Alright. Create the room. Let's come over here and hit play so we can find the room. And there's the room. I'm going to join. Come over here. X, O, X, O, X. Yay, X wins. We refresh. Missing a reference. Variable scroll content to Fusion Manager doesn't exist anymore. From Fusion Manager 137. Oh, because on the session list updated. Alright, we're going to put our null catch here too. If scroll content is null, then, and I'm just going to come grab it up here. Where was that before? Oh well, I'll just remember. Then scroll content equals GameObject.find content.transform. All right, let's build and run again. All right, building and running. Create a room. Let's come over here and hit play. And give me a room. Join it. We're in. X, O, X, O, X. X wins. Come on, baby. Run. Sweet. Create room. Join room. We have a game loop, people. Let's make sure it works. X, O, X, O, X. X wins. Go back. Create a room. We have a game loop. All right. All right. Super cool. So, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. What I will also be doing is I will be exporting this as a package, and I'll be putting it on my Patreon page. All right, so here's my Patreon page. I currently don't have any Patreons at the recording of this video, and probably because I didn't really have any super benefits for anybody to become a patron other than just supporting me. So what I am going to do is I will be uploading as a Unity package this TicTacToe project. So if you've been following along, or you'd rather have the project while you follow along, it'll be there for anybody who's a patron at any level. There's several levels of membership. There's $3.60 a month, which is for coffee a day. For 2 cups of coffee a day, I like coffee, so that's the theory that I did with that. All right, so if there's anything else you're interested in me doing a tutorial of, don't hesitate to suggest it in the comments, or come hang out in the Discord, which link will be in the description. Also, link to the Patreon will be in the description as well. Until next time, we'll see you later.